everybody. This is Building Authentic Relationships Virtually with Elementary Age Students. And just a little bit about me and my background. I'm a professional school counselor at Kenwood Elementary, and I always say best school in JCPS. Love it there. If you have any follow-up questions, this is just some contact information. And I know that the presentation is linked on the digital learning channel page. So if you're able to follow along with that, that's great, because there are some interactive links that we can use. And if not, Brandy Kalin and Jill Hanley are helping me out in the chat box. And I think Michelle Searcy's there too. And Brandy has a list of those links that she can paste as we get there. So I'm going to be honest, whenever I hear somebody say, what's your why? I feel like it's overused, especially in the fitness industry. What's your why? I cringe a little bit every time I hear it, but I feel like it's so important right now as we start the school year, because we are all being pushed outside of our comfort zones. And the really awesome thing about that is that we're going to get to learn and grow if we choose to view it that way. But I'm assuming none of us started our jobs because of the paycheck. So what's your why? Why did you get into teaching? Why did you get into the field of education? If you want to interact with me, you can click on that picture of my why, or Brandy has the link for a Jamboard, and just give me a snippet. Why did you get into the field of education? And I really feel like connecting with that is going to help us make this a more successful school year, because we are all so pushed outside of our comfort zones right now. So if you don't care to take a minute to do that, that would be awesome. All right, the next thing is virtual home visits. So our teachers at Kenwood are doing virtual home visits right now. But if you've never done a home visit before, it's a really powerful way to build really authentic relationships with not only your students, but their families as well. And right now, this is a total team effort. It always is, but even more so right now. So you can ask parents questions like, what's your goal for your child's future? So that you know what their outlook is for their child. And then what do you want to see your child accomplish this school year? We started our drive-through orientations at Kenwood last night, and we had a parent who has had multiple kids come through Kenwood. Her last one is there now, and she said, Miss Donnelly, I wish we could be back in person because the kids just get so much more. And I said, the experience of NTI in the spring was new for all of us, and I promise there are going to be more learning opportunities for your child. Even though we had some great learning opportunities in the spring, we've really stepped up our game. But I want to hear your feedback, so let me know what you think in a few weeks. And just having those open and honest conversations, this is new for all of us. And then, is there anything you'd like for me to know about your family? And then for the student, what's your goal for this school year? Is there anything you really want to focus on? Is there anything else that you would like for me to know? This is something huge that I feel like is not only important. This is something that we strive to do with our staff, but it's also super important for students. Take time to incorporate fun every single day. Right now, we're in the midst of 2 different pandemics, and lots of students have lots of stressors. So the more that you can engage them in just something fun, just to be a kid, you're going to build an authentic relationship, because you're engaging that child in something that's enjoyable, maybe something that they've not had a chance to do because of the different pandemics that are going on. So fun. It doesn't have to take very much time. You can do something really quick to incorporate fun to get students engaged before you start the lesson. So here are some ideas. One of our very favorite things that we've ever done with our staff, and I didn't post her picture here because I thought she'd be mad, but we have a picture of a staff member in the middle of a game called Cookie Monster. And it's a really quick thing where we just, we grabbed a tray of cookies from Sam's, which obviously you wouldn't be able to do in a virtual world, but you could say, hey, if you have a cookie in your house, or it could even be like, go find a sock if you're worried that kids wouldn't have a cookie, whatever it is, go find something, let's say a sock, put it on your forehead, and you're going to wiggle it without using your hands. You got to put your hands behind your back. You can make sure everybody has their cameras on, so you can make sure they're not using their hands, but they wiggle their face till they can get it down around to their mouth. And maybe you want to specify a clean sock, not a dirty sock. But that's a really fun game that we've used with staff, and I know kids would love that just as much. Show and tell. So Our teachers did a really great job of engaging students in something fun in each of their morning meetings last year. And so they did some show and tell things like by assigning a color. So I joined a third grade teacher's morning meeting last year, and they had a show and tell based on the color yellow. And a student was laying in their bed with a yellow blanket that was their favorite. And that's just a really nice opportunity we get to see students in their homes. What's more personal and vulnerable than that? She was laying in her bed with her favorite yellow blanket. So we have a really unique opportunity to get to know our students on a much deeper level being in this virtual world. And then riddle of the day. I went into one classroom that was doing joke of the day, and that was really fun, but that can get really not PC very quickly and made me a little bit nervous. So I would just suggest that maybe you do a riddle of the day instead of a joke of the day, but just something to kind of lighten the mood. And Brandy just told me that the closed captions are not on, so
there you go.
Fix that. I'm so sorry.
They're working now. Yeah, great.
Perfect.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. All right, so interactive lessons are the key. And I know the last presenters just talked a lot about Jamboard. I know Kahoot is a big deal, Flipgrid, all of those things. But making your lessons interactive is going to give you a better chance to get to know students, because you're not just talking to them, they're getting a chance to interact, and you're also going to engage them more. Interactive Google Docs and slides. So if you have a collaborative group effort and you're using a Google Doc, that could be a great way for students to collaborate even when you're not there. There are so many things, but the more you can interact with students virtually instead of just talking to them, the better your relationships are going to be. All right, so making things as personalized as possible is another great way to get to build relationships with your students. Morning meetings, if you are starting your Google Meet, I would suggest you frame it just like you do when you're in the classroom, when you get together in a whole group morning meeting to start your day. The teachers that had the most success of getting students to their classroom all framed their Google Meets in the same way. Just like they would for their morning meeting in their classroom, they started with an overview of the schedule for the day. They started with a circle, just like the last group of presenters was talking about. They did a circle where students got to share whether or not it was their show and tell item, whatever it may be. Students got to share, and then they reviewed their expectations for the day. So it looked very similar to what a morning meeting would look like in their classroom. And those were the teachers that had the most students show up in their classroom last year, because students were really engaged. Brandy shared this link for a learner profile with our staff that I loved. And that's a great way just to find out more about each student, so they can give you information about them, the things that they enjoy, what they feel like is their strength of learning, things like that. So you can play on that in this virtual world. I know Dr. Polio is really focusing on synchronous learning. So having the opportunity to have more small group check-ins or one-on-one check-ins. In the last presentation, they were talking about if a student shares something that's concerning whole group, addressing it in the whole group virtually probably isn't the best setting to do that, because as you know, they're in their home, so there are their family members around. It's not the intimate setting of a classroom. So checking in with that student one-on-one, reaching out to see if you can have a Google Meet just with them, that'll go a long way. Creating classroom norms together, just like you would at the beginning of the school year. So what are the norms that you want to have while students are on Google Meet? What are the norms that you want them to have for submitting work in Google Classroom? All of those things that you would do at the beginning of the school year, they're so important, if not more, to do those same things now that we're virtual. I know Bitmoji classrooms are the craze, but that's a great way to personalize. Personally, I love this remove BG, that stands for background. If you've not already heard of that, Brandy shared this with us, I guess last week in an admin meeting. And so that's how I added my personal picture to that second slide. I love that because it's actually your kids get to see an actual picture of you implemented into the slides. All right, so mind maps. This is not something that JCPS students have access to right now, but I want to share it with you anyway because there are some things that you can still use it for. We ended up doing a culture fair at Kenwood last year, and since students can't access it, their parents actually logged in with them, and then they would put a marker on mind maps. If you click on that link, or if you click on the link that Brandy gives you, you can actually do it right now. This was a really powerful tool, not only to engage our students, but to engage our families. And we really built some more authentic relationships with the whole family as a result of mind maps, because we have a large ESL population at Kenwood, the largest of any elementary school in the district. I think we're at 44%. But our families got to go in and mark on the map where they're from. And then during the culture fair, it was virtual. We kind of went through all of those different markers, and families were like glued to the screen because they could see the street view of where they were from. And it was kind of like they were actually walking down the street. And it was such an amazing experience to see not only our students engaged, but our families engaged. They were all glued to the screen, really interacting with mind maps. So if you want to take a minute to click on that link and plot where you're from, then we could see at the end of the presentation kind of where everybody that has attended today, where everybody's from. And then maybe I'll even have a chance to play with it to show you what it looks like. But this was a really great opportunity, especially if you teach students who are from another country, because it's a really cool way to get to see some of the actual places where they live. All right, so implicit biases have been a huge topic for our district, and rightfully so, because of the racial pandemic that we have happening right now in our city, across the country. So many things are happening. Implicit biases are important to remember because as we learn more about ourselves and the biases that we hold, those impact the relationships with students. And though they aren't outward biases or something that we necessarily set out to do, they still impact the relationships that we have with our students every single day. So some of the things that we talked about at Kenwood after going through the implicit bias training that the district provided, which was amazing. If you've not done that with your staff yet, I can't wait for you to do that, because it really is eye-opening. Some of the videos are really great. And if you've seen it, we talked a lot about the video with Tony and Anaya specifically in the classroom and how we would have responded to Tony. So the things that we talked about were having an accountability partner, somebody to come in and just observe you and see if they notice anything. Because if I had reflected back on that situation, I maybe wouldn't have even realized I was being biased against Tony and her contributions to the content. Having an accountability partner is a really great way to check your biases, to reflect on them every single day, because we want to make sure that all of our students feel included every single day. And it's tough because implicit biases we don't always recognize. So doing our part to really check those and make sure that they're not impacting our students in a negative way is going to give us the best opportunity to build those authentic relationships and really empower students. And then the last thing that's super important as a teacher, I preach self-care all the time. Self-care isn't selfish. You can't pour from an empty cup. There are so many things that are pushing us outside of our comfort zones right now. You may be working more hours than you've ever worked, because if you're on Class Dojo, if you're on School Connect, families can message you at really any hour and you don't have to respond. But I know a lot of people feel obligated because that's when their families are working. So you might be on call almost 24/7 right now, and that's stressful. You have to take time for yourself to be your best self for your students. So if that's going for a run, great. If that's just taking a walk outside, getting outside for a minute, if it's taking a long bath, whatever it is that makes you relax and just kind of decompress, you have to do that. A lot of us have little bitties at home right now, which makes it even more stressful while we're teaching our students. You have to give yourself at least 5 to 10 minutes every single day. And just also noticing when you're sitting at your computer with your kids or working on a task that's really stressful, noticing your body. I know I had this conversation with someone else earlier this summer who said their jaw was getting really tight because they were clenching it while they were at their computer, not even realizing it, but paying attention to your own body language. So if you feel yourself doing something like that, reminding yourself with that self-talk, positive self-talk, to unclench your jaw, relax your shoulders, things like that can go a long way, even though they're really simple, to help you have a more successful day. And when you're at the top of your game, you're going to be able to build those authentic relationships with students. All right, so feedback. I included a link for feedback, and Brandy, I did not send this to you, I'm so sorry. But if you're in the PowerPoint presentation, if you would click on that link and leave some feedback before you leave to let me know, was there anything that was a great takeaway that you'd like to know more about? Or was there something else that you wish would have been here? I'm always learning, continually learning and growing, and I want to make sure that I'm providing things that of value to you. So if you don't care to leave some feedback, I would really appreciate it. And then this is just the credits for Slide Mania. So I don't know if we have any questions, Brandy, Jill, Michelle.
It doesn't look like there are any outstanding questions necessarily. There was a lot of affirmation and positive feedback on your presentation, though. So, when you click on your My Maps, did you get any responses from that?
See, I want to show this just because it's so amazing. Yes.
Awesome.
All right, so let's just see. Let me make this screen a little bit bigger. I don't know how to move this box. Looks like we've got somebody from Russell, Kentucky, and here we'll take you to a link from Google Maps, and then you can change this to the street view. You can do a 3D version. And if you zoom in, you can actually kind of explore some of the streets, the local places in Russell, Kentucky. I don't think I've ever been there. There's a big middle school. We'll go out of this and back. Springfield, Kentucky. And then I didn't put mine in. So if you haven't used this before, I'm from Elizabethtown, Kentucky. So if I wanted to enter mine, I would add to map and then review in Google Maps. There are pictures over here you can look at. There are different 360 views of things. So you could actually have students plot some of their favorite things of their places in their hometown, take a tour. So this is the nature park. There are lots of different little unique museums and in Newtown, things like that. So this was something that, like I said, in our culture fair, we really enjoyed, but I thought it would be a great get to know you activity to see where everybody in your class is from. You could look at it on your morning meeting together to view some of the things that some of the places that your kids are from. And then take some time to explore that street view. You can play around with the maps ahead of time. The 3D view, you can zoom in, zoom out, see some of the popular places there. It looks like Walmart's pretty popular in Newtown. Yeah, that was one of the biggest things that I enjoyed, the best things that I enjoyed from NTI 1.0 in the spring, and I can't wait to use that again.